I used to feel that a film means something where you see Amitabh Bachchan. As a kid, to always think that this building is so tall because Amitabh lives in it. He doesn't fit in normal. People do say product for film, which I find strange. But then when you think of a studio film, it is a product.
Interesting.
Shaunak Sen's first film is MAMI programmed, Cities of Sleep. I wrote to Shaunak and I said, this is a really good film. Can we program it like at MAMI and all? And he was like, who submitted my film?
Yeah, मेरे को मुंबई शहर बहुत पसंद है. One of the prime reasons why I love this city is Mumbai Film Festival. मैंने हर बार जब भी ये फेस्टिवल अटेंड किया है, it has been one of the highlights of that year for me. और इस बार भी आई एम सो मच लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू मुंबई फिल्म फेस्टिवल. वो 27 अक्टूबर को चालू हो रहा है और 5 नवंबर तक चलने वाला है. एंड सिंस आई एम सच अ बिग फैन ऑफ मुंबई फिल्म फेस्टिवल, मेरे को यार ये फेस्टिवल्स कैसे होते हैं ना, इसके बारे में मैं चाहता था हम एक वीडियो बनाएं. एंड आई गॉट टू स्पीक टू दीप्ति DCunha, हु इज द आर्टिस्टिक डायरेक्टर ऑफ मुंबई फिल्म फेस्टिवल. शी इज अ ग्रेट पर्सन टू टॉक टू. उन्होंने हमें बॉलीवुड के बारे में इतनी शानदार स्टोरीज बताई हैं. उन्होंने बताया फेस्टिवल्स कैसे होते हैं. उन्होंने ये बताया जो स्टैंडिंग ओवेशंस देते हैं कान में, डज इट हैव एनी सब्सटेंस. हमने ये सारी चीजों की बातें की हैं. So let's quickly jump inside the amazing conversation I had with Deepti DCunha on Chalchitra Talks. Hi Deepti, how are you? Welcome to Chalchitra Talks.
Well, thank you, Vaibhav, for being here and doing this for Geo Mami. And yeah, I look forward to this interview.
It goes without saying, I'm one of the biggest fans of MAMI, and I keep telling Abhishek कि मेरे को brand ambassador बना दो, because everywhere I go, I tell people you have to be at MAMI. And I think in general, because I have attended it a few times and it has been one of the highlights of the year for me. And I just want to let you know that like it's a big thing. It holds a very special place in my heart.
That's so lovely, because I think, what you're saying is resonated by so many people in Mumbai. And I too was a MAMI goer in college. Yeah. So MAMI is actually, started in 1997 and it's almost completing, I think it's completed 25 years. So we do have a lot of memories associated with it. We've had a lot of teams working on it. And I think it's so important for Mumbai to continue having a film festival, simply because we are like a film city in that sense.
Which was the first edition of MAMI that you attended?
So I'm very bad with dates, so I won't remember exactly, but I know that I must have been in the 11th or 12th standard when I attended MAMI, and I must have gone to YB Chauhan or, somewhere there. So yeah, around that time, I'm not even sure who the management was, but there used to be a Third Eye Film Festival, there used to be MAMI, and all we knew is that this is where we watch very different kind of films.
I'll come to MAMI in a bit, but like since we'll be talking about film festivals today and we are also going to take a lot of recommendations today, in regard to film festivals, the first question that I want you to answer for all the people who are watching this, Cannes Film Festival में ये जो 20 मिनट की standing ovation होती है, is it like a legitimate thing? And like how do people decide कि okay, this is the moment I should stop clapping now?
You brought back such an amazing memory by saying this, because it is true that you do have very long standing ovations, but I was so lucky to have experienced the standing ovation for Lunchbox. I remember that we had gone for the premiere screening of Lunchbox, and it was in Critics Week, which is really at the end of the crossset in a theatre which is almost like in the basement. And when the film got over, it gets over with a bhajan, right? We had a standing ovation. I mean, people were overwhelmed with the film. And there was a standing ovation, and I was standing in the audience. And of course, Irfan was there, and Nawaz was there, and everyone was there, soaking in the ovation. And after a point, it started getting too long, but people went into the bhajan, clapping. And that's when I realized that when you clap for a bhajan, you can go on and on. It will not stop because your hands don't get tired. There is a certain rhythm. And I think after a point, actors started feeling uncomfortable. How long do we smile? How long do we stand? But they were not going to stop. So it seemed interminable. And I have always remembered that as my most memorable standing ovation, because they literally had to leave the theater while the ovation, like while they were still clapping, and it seemed like much more than 20 minutes. But this year, just very much this year, when we went for the premiere of Kennedy in the main theater, the ovation by the audience, the lines and the ovation by the audience, just because Anurag Kashyap was presenting his film in the Lumiere, the encouragement, the long ovation. I mean, those are experiences which are not, because we don't see it here, because we watch film, buying a ticket, watch a film, and you go, you don't realize the passion that is there. The appreciation is there, not for a film, but for the body of work, and for thanking the filmmaker for always bringing their film. So I think for Can, like Anurag is someone that Can finds very precious. Audiences of Can, I'm saying. So when he was presenting, that was really a moment that is quite memorable, So yeah, it goes on. It's not like these ovations are timed, and because these audiences which are there are also industry, but they are cinephiles.
Yeah.
And how long the ovation is kind of gives an indication to the salespeople or distributors that will this film work or not.
So you are saying that these are times. So there is a person, the moment everyone stand up, there is a person on stopwatch going like, it started.
There might be. What the people who are clapping, but the industry is always keeping a close watch.
Yes, because it's always a number, 13 minutes standing ovation, 15 minutes standing ovation.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is, way of understanding, like, will this film create a buzz everywhere? Because festivals are basically that. They're testing grounds for a lot of films. They're platforms for a lot of films to, for the business part of them to know, okay, will this work or no? Because these films usually don't necessarily have a studio backing them, which has already laid out the distribution plan. When it's a studio produced film, you already have your networks where these films will go. What will happen to these films. Deals are signed in advance. But the spirit of independent films and what film festivals encourage is usually, trying to give a platform to new talent, or creating visibility for a filmmaker, new territories. So the performance of the film at the festival becomes very key in the industry. The people are buying the rights to figure out whether this film will make it or no. Like when you're in Cannes, for example, I remember the year that Parasite won, we pretty much knew 4 days or 5 days in advance that this film is getting crazy ovations, right? So every screening you want to line up, and then I stood in line for like 2 or 3 hours and I didn't get in. It's not like everyone is performing equally, and it's a tense competition, because it's almost like it's like the Olympics of film festivals. Like the best come from all over the world, and then you're just showing it day after day, and only some of them emerge as so the audiences are indicators.
So I have heard it that like bahar ke festivals mein aisa hota hai ki if your film is good, you might find the distributor there only. So does it happen at MAMI also?
So the thing is that MAMI has always been a very good, experience for a filmmaker with audiences. And because also I believe that so many of our audiences are filmmakers or budding filmmakers themselves, aspirational filmmakers themselves. So many young people come to Mumbai just to be able to get a foot into the industry, the filmmaking industry that is there. And MAMI becomes a crash course, right, for them to actually absorb what's going on around the world. Like they'll trust the curation of the festival and say, okay, you're bringing us the best. So these 10 days, I'm not going to do much work. I'm going to sit and just absorb it like it's a short course on. I've done my homework on the best of the best. But when you're talking about distribution, yes, I would like to believe that now that so many platforms and some distributors are open to independent films. For example, we all know that E Balehu, which premiered at MAMI, went on to win a Filmfare Award. Right? I mean, it's a very older type of legitimacy, but it helps. It managed to get distribution. You will not get a Filmfare Award unless you have distributed your film. So there have been talks, so many have been acquired by Netflix, like Sony got acquired by Netflix, so many others. So yes, clearly there are people who are passionate about films who are also working in distribution. Distribution is a very tough game. So you need a lot of passion, and they're looking out for talent always. And they do have, it does happen in MAMI, but in festivals that have a strong market component, like Cannes or Berlin, or maybe you could say Toronto, or there are structures and infrastructure built for
Yeah.
them to have these meetings, because a lot of these meetings have to happen before. You have to have market screenings, and in India you have something called Film Bazaar. So a lot of independent talent that shows their film at Film Bazaar do manage to even get into film festivals. Then the producer director will go there, and then they'll sign deals. Like there's been a really small film called Dostoji, which came from Bengal. I mean, it's released worldwide. It had a poster up in Times Square,
Yeah.
right? So you do have basically film festivals are not, we look at film festivals as wow, it's a celebration and audiences can watch films, but film festivals have the potential to make a career of a filmmaker.
I'm sure like MAMI would also be working towards having a structure of a market like Cannes, or let's say the festivals you mentioned. Like,
So what this year we are trying our very best to put in a lot of things in place. These things take a long time because also with the internet it's not so difficult to actually think that you can get meetings with Zoom and I can connect with someone here. But there's nothing like putting an infrastructure together. We are very lucky that our sponsors, Jio, have come to back us in a big way. Not only as sponsors, but they've given us a place this time. So MAMI has always depended a lot on our partners, PVR, who have been so generous with giving us the best screens across the city. Otherwise, the festival wouldn't happen. I mean, we are almost a 20 screen festival, which means we are by far the largest festival in India and also in the region. But now we will have something called a festival center. So finally we can explore the things that MAMI couldn't, because we didn't have the space to. Because everyone in Mumbai knows there is no space in this city, right? So we will be looking at the beginnings of an industry which will be very different from what happens in Goa Film Bazaar, because that's a set market since 14 years.
got it.
And we are trying to fill in the gaps, but also really focus on what Mumbai city has to offer. And what a festival like MAMI does is basically we are connecting. This year our vision is South Asia really. So, but we are connecting South Asia to the rest of the world. So we want to bring in as many international people, talent, professionals, and there should be, practices that we learn, and we want to increase the distribution of films beyond diaspora networks. We have great diaspora distribution, right? Like you can say every Yash Raj film, every Dharma film, now almost every Hombale Pictures film, like they have figured out that, this is where Indians or South Asians live around the world, and in those theaters, when it's a same day and date release worldwide, right? But what has happened is that there are a lot of people who are not Indian and they don't understand Indian films and they don't get to watch Indian films. How do you tap that? If you take Lunchbox as a case study, literally, that was the first film that many non-diaspora audiences, first Indian film many non-diaspora audiences watched. Like I met some Polish people, I met some people from East Europe and even from Latin America who were like, oh, do you know, I watched this film called Lunchbox and I didn't know Indian films are like this. So they actually, because of the co-production model that was set for the film, they got distribution in very different networks.
Very nice.
And that is what film festivals can enable, because those co-producers came back to produce with India, and and that is what we require. We require more interactions. We need people to understand each other. And while we are in India, we are so, one thing which is great and we should be very proud of is that we actually consume our own, in the sense that we wear our own clothes, we eat food that we like, which is very much Indian food. There's so much more to explore about the country. Like everyone is trying to still figure out, like eat all kinds of Indian cuisines, wear all kinds of Indian attire. We are not consuming only what the West gives us. In fact, we are one of the toughest markets to crack, right? For Hollywood to crack, literally. And they had to introduce, like you can say, English subtitles for English films for us to watch English films. So, but what's happening is that we are so happy within ourselves that we are not really managing to go out as talent and really, take our films out. There are few and far between. Only what is considered the best of our best in the mainstream with very high budgets manage to go. And then people wake up with surprise and say, oh, India can also make this kind of a film. But obviously everyone in India knows. I mean, at least the diaspora population know that we have a, thriving industry, and we have incredible talent here. And I think that we should have many more film festivals, and we should be able to all work in collaboration.
Talking about film festivals, I think you're the right person to ask this. Is it Cannes Film Festival or Cannes Film Festival?
So I'm also as bad with this, but from what I've heard, people do say can, and it is not wrong to say Khan as well.
Oh,
so it's
both
like,
are right.
yeah, I think I used to say Khan. It used to sound a little British to me. I say can. No one corrects me for what I'm saying, and everyone's like, it's fine. So I think call it what you want. Only it sounds a little weird when you say cans. The S should not be pronounced, because I think the French do not pronounce the consonant after the vowel. So if you do can, it's okay.
Since we have been talking about films in general, I want to know about your first film watching memory of your life.
I have been watching films before I knew they were films, maybe, because my mother is the craziest film fan. So I don't think a theater was ever a new place that I went to, because I'm sure as a toddler also I must have been on her lap, while watching films. But I do have some very amusing memories now when I think of, because when I was growing up, and that was a long time ago, there was one personality that was all over films, and that was Amitabh Bachchan, right? So I used to feel that a film means something where you see Amitabh Bachchan. For me, it was that. I could not understand the film, but I could recognize him as a personality. And I still remember a very confusing memory of mine, because my mother took me to watch Meri Jung in, I think, Amber Oscar. We used to have a theatre in Andheri. And the whole film, I waited for Amitabh Bachchan to come. And the film got over, and he never made an appearance. And it shocked me, and I was like, what happened? How could he, like, it just confused the hell out of me, because I never even knew that was a possibility. So now when I think about it, I laugh a lot, because, and also, I've grown up here, and we've always had this presence, because he was always in Juhu, I mean, staying where he was. So it was not a rare sight, because when you grow up in Warsaw, like I did, and according to film, smuggling ka maal hamesha Warsaw beach pe aata hai. So our weekends were always spent, you can say, stalking Amitabh. Unfortunately, it's really sad to say, but I'm an official Amitabh Bachchan stalker. As a kid, I used to we used to know in advance कि अच्छा उसका shooting यहाँ पे हो रहा है. It used to be the picnic cottage, or it used to be, one of these places. And then we used to figure out as a gang of 2 or 3 on how we will jump into the shoot, like from which building ke which wall pe you have to climb up, and you have to basically, the idea was you go where the shooting is there, and when you see him, without fear, walk up to him. Ooh. Okay, so it was a crazy thing that I used to do. I had a autographed book of only his autographs, because I had this habit of walking up to him, like jumping from the wall, standing in front of him, saying, I want autograph, I want to. So it was a crazy obsession.
How many autographs did you have?
I had collected around 4 or 5, and then I think by the 6th one, I went up to him when I was a kid only, and I think I got pretty offended that he didn't recognize me. Ooh. So I was like, I remember it was when he was coming out of the airport once, and I had gone to meet a friend, and this was much later. And I remembered my old self, and he was walking with these bodyguards, and I said, Chal, let me see if I can still do it. So I turned around and I walked up to him. I said, hello, Mr. Bachchan. And he's gracious as always. He was like, hello. And I said, I've been following your films, and, you don't...
I've been following you.
Yeah. I mean, now it sounds so creepy, right? So, and... literally, I was like, by now you should recognize me. And he said, oh yeah, I think I should. And he was very sweet about it, but it was a laugh. And so those memories are there, because what used to happen is in 7 bungalows, like weekend pay, we used to just go here, go and stand. I'm sure I'm in the background of so many film shoots because that time they used to not even remove the crowd. So if there was a dance thing or something, then I would have been somewhere there. And we met a lot of stars growing up because a lot of them were in, Saat Bangla. And like Om Puri used to stay close by. We used to see, Nasir come, and I still, those memories of growing up. But because they were so well known, I went into some real weird phase, I think, late 80s or 90s, where I started getting obsessed with the horror films. So, and we went through the whole video, when the theater shut down, and then VCR player, we had to watch films only through cassettes. So I remember that time we used to watch a lot of Ramsey films, and we used to watch a lot of, Nari Hira specials. I don't think anyone remembers Nari Hira films. So we used to watch all these kind of films. And there were these actors used to live in our area only. So I used to become fans of very strange people because I watched them in some small horror film. And, I think Aram Nagar, a lot of stuff was happening even then. So yeah, I've grown up, you could say, almost like in a weekend ka film set.
It was such a great story.
I don't think anyone realizes his stardom, what it was when we were growing up, it was so bizarre. Like, I remember, and I was always a very imaginative and crazy kid. Like, we have a building right opposite, which is a 14-story building, right? When I was growing up, for me, it was a skyscraper. And I used to always think that this building is so tall because Amitabh lives in it. He doesn't fit in normal height buildings. Like, I was like, such a tall man needs such a tall building to live in. So I used to be like quite crazy in the way. I mean, I don't know why I'm saying all this on
but
camera, but it was like all these crazy imagination because he used to make a world of films, and I was so happy last year. It was last year, in October, I think, when Shivendra did the whole birthday celebration, the 1 week showing of his films. Like, for me to go and watch Diwar again on the big screen in a full auditorium with Shabana Azmi and Javed Akhtar there, I know the dialogues like pat, and to see the fight sequence on the big screen, I mean, just that nostalgia. Like, I went back to being a kid, and because we used to go in Navrang and, we used to watch Satya Pe Satta only to dance. So I was one of those jungly kids who used to like, song is going on, get out the seat and start dancing. So I've enjoyed cinema like from my heart, only because in my family also, like, every Friday was an event.
Wow.
Like, since I think I was one of the uncool kids in school, because I used to consume so much Hindi cinema. And at that time, I remember it was not a big thing. Bollywood was not like cool. Right? I mean, it was just like, it was a bad habit, literally. A lot of parents used to not allow their kids to. But my mother was so crazy about films that we always tracked which film was releasing. And I have watched the most bizarre, memorable films on big screen, like even like Loha and everything, So yes, I've really enjoyed my childhood Saturdays. Actually, we used to go for the Saturday show in Navrang or Chandan or Amber Oscar.
So during that festival when they were showcasing all the Amitabh Bachchan films, how many films did you catch?
So I couldn't because I was so busy working. But
Diwar was.
That was like, I said, let me watch. I had to select one. I would have actually caught anything because I had watched all his films. But I selected Diwar simply because also it's Yash Chopra, and I'm a huge fan of Yash Chopra's films. So I wanted to see, but this time I was seeing it far more technically, like from the eyes of, knowing how films are made. So I was like, oh, the blocking of the shot is so good. So I was getting into all of that but it was nice to experience it again.
Amazing. Since you are running a film festival and like a lot of, you must be watching a lot of films, right? And I don't think all of them would be good, right? Like, there are so many like quote unquote mediocre films out there. So does it ever bore you, like when you are like, okay, ab ye bhi dekhna pad raha hai, ye bhi dekhna pad raha hai, or have you made your peace with watching not so good films in life?
So for me, I would say, like, I'm the original binge watcher. Like, I just would have watched anything and everything, but I approach films very differently. Like, I'm not watching films for entertainment, right? I don't really need to focus on whether it's boring me or, I mean, of course, you keep that because you want to share it with the audience, but I'm very, very interested in why has this filmmaker made this film? Because for me, film is not a cheap medium to make. Imagine the resources to make a film, and the you need to be kind of confident, courageous to
Yes.
say that I am going to. And one thing I respect about a lot about filmmakers, and I do respect filmmakers a lot in our country, is because it's not an easy profession to get into.
Yes.
To be able to tell your parents that you want to be a filmmaker itself is a very big decision.
Yes.
No parents are immediately happy because they know there's a struggle out of concern, but it also, for a lot of people, for a lot of parents, it seems like you're throwing away your education and getting into something that is frivolous, right? And that's not true, because you are following an urge that you have, and you are listening to yourself, and it's a talent that you think that you want to hone. So for me, cinema is anything like any of the art forms. It could be like music or painting or it could even be like good writing, or it could be dance. So it's one of the art forms. And what happens is that I truly believe talent can emerge anywhere. It doesn't have to emerge from certain places, and sometimes it's pure talent, right? You understand the medium, and now it's so easy to learn the meaning. Like you were telling me, you've learned it through YouTube,
Yes.
right? So it's about experimenting, getting into something. So whenever I get a film, I don't forget that it's really a heartfelt struggle by a filmmaker. And I love watching the whole film too. But I always wonder, what exactly is this filmmaker saying? That they've gone all out and given so much time to actually complete a film. But also, when you say bad films, like, it's the moment you realize that the film there's so many things that make a film much better than how it's made. A is which language is the film in. Like, I have discovered, so many languages in India only because I've watched the films, right? Like, there are people who come from places which have no infrastructure. And this is one of the reasons also why parents don't want you to get into it, because there is no real guarantee or infrastructure to create films. And literally, films are created out of nothing. We are like full jugadu filmmakers, right? Who are just like trying to put something together. And it's, so you get to know so much more, even if the film is shot without sets, right? If you're just going to look beyond where it's shot, what that place looks like, you're getting so much information about the place, the way they visualize the characters, the need to say something, you understand the structure. So I feel in some ways these fictions which are written are far more, and these awkward fictions, or what we call, are far more powerful than maybe a documentary filmmaker coming from somewhere else and placing their camera and telling you, this is how I look at the world. So they're very organic. And also, because it's a collaborative effort, what's so interesting is sometimes the film story might not work, the direction might be weak, but it has such amazing shots. So it's like so well. So at that time, I'm very curious to see who's the cinematographer who managed to uplift.
So you always look at the end credits.
I do, if I like the work. So if I notice, and I like, I feel that sound designers do an amazing job, among independent filmmakers. Like, they give it I don't really get to watch too many films in final cut, but the ones that I've watched, like, I really like to see who has done this sound, or who's done this edit, like, why? Because it's filmmaking is not only, directing actors or actors acting, right? So there's so much you can learn from a film that might have not come together well enough to be a film to share with all audiences, but you can always. And I think watching a lot of YouTube now we're used to also not that level of, production. Of course, sometimes you do get very annoyed at the themes of films, but that's what they want to express. So you understand the thinking behind and I've actually specialized a lot in Indian cinema for the past 10, 11 years. So I think the kind of information that you can get out of watching films, you're not going to get out of the internet or reading things in newspapers or watching.
Very true.
It is literally, it's a very unique kind of information that you have access to, and I think it's a very unique access. So I really enjoy that experience of connecting with filmmakers all over it, from all over India, from the smallest of towns, from different languages. For example, I'll tell you, the first time I got in touch with Nagraj Manjule was when he made this short film called Pistulia. And we had programmed it at the Children's Film. I was a programmer at the Children's Film Festival. And he sent the shot. And it was incredible. And I called him up because I was like, oh, this is such a lovely shot. And I realized I was speaking in English and he was not. But the name stuck. I was like, oh, wow, there is Nagraj Manjule. This director is very talented, And then he comes with Fandry. And so we put it in, I was programming that time for Film Bazaar viewing room. And I gave it something called a Film Bazaar recommendation. And, we showed it to people in the industry. And I remember the producers of Fandry had come to Film Bazaar. They were real estate developers, because that's how a lot of independent films get made. You take money from people in real estate who are ready to part with a few crores to make the film. And Fandry, through that, found a larger audience. And when I saw Serat, my heart brimmed with pride. I mean, I'm not saying that I had anything to do with it, but the fact that I have seen the short film, and seen Nagraj go to becoming this big director, who now we know is a fantastic director. But with what means did he make a short film, from this village in Maharashtra also? I think these kind of stories always keep the passion alive for, watching that small film. And there's so many journeys like that. Even Reema Das's first film, or which we programmed at MAMI. She's always shown her films at MAMI. She's been a 2-time winner at MAMI.
Village Rockstar.
Village Rockstar and Bulbul Can Sing. Man with Binoculars was in the non-competition section at MAMI. And at that time when you met her, she was, no one would have guessed that she's such a powerhouse of a woman, right? Like, she's made her first fiction feature. It's come to non-competition. She was so meek. I remember at the festival, one point she came and said, hello, I have my film. I said, oh, you're Reema Das. It's so lovely to meet you. But look at that journey. It's inspirational. I mean, it's incredible. Today she's been on juries all around the world. She's made films that have gone all around the world. And she's still making, even during COVID, when it was not possible to really make a film, she turns the camera onto her family and she makes such a beautiful film. So I'm like, these are urges of talent that, will go on. And I think film festivals can really support that, because it can be a very lonely journey, making a film and then saying, ki, koi nahi dekh raha hai. Who's watching my film? And so out of that, I've always maintained that whatever it is I should watch, I might be the only person initially watching the film, but at least you should watch the film, because there's a lot of love that's gone into that process. And also with independent filmmakers, it's so fragile, right? Because the first film is usually made with money of family and friends. And then if that film doesn't work, how do you get that push to make your second film unless you were not noticed in the first film? So this is something that we want to really change at MAMI. We really want to enable first-time filmmakers to find the tools to produce their films better. Because what I feel is, and this is also learnings that come from Film Bazaar, because that was, has been a market for so long, which has been the place that a lot of independent filmmakers first come to. And also because I have worked with Locarno Open Doors for 6 years, literally training younger filmmakers to become a part of a producer's lab, that what India really needs are creative producers. Like the urge of filmmaking is not going to go. You can't tell people कि film mat banao. Oh, they will make the film.
They will.
What they need is that it's wrong for the director to be the producer, to be the editor, to be the sound person, to be, and sometimes even acting in their own film. I mean, no, you need to be able to get a team together, but you also need to be able to get the money from where the money exists. and you need to get collaborators and partners on board, and that is something a creative producer can do.
So how is MAMI helping in finding someone, their creative producer?
What we are going to do is we're basically going to enable filmmakers with a lot of information on how, where these funds are and where these producers are. And there are a lot of producers labs. Eventually in the coming years we will try to start a producers lab, because creative producing also means to be, how do you be resourceful and how do you become a support to the director. Let the director direct the film, let the producer, you know, make sure that everything happens around the film, which is what the model is for any studio, right? How do you do that for an independent film? And I think we do have a very we are launching a filmmakers program, you know, for which is going to make our South Asian filmmakers connect with debut filmmakers internationally, learn through case studies how they produce their films, and bring in some professionals. And it's all doable, because if you realize this way of filmmaking, which is not sustainable, exists all over the world for first time filmmakers. But certain places they've figured out how to overcome that because they have enough number of creative producer. Like for example, when I was and this learning came to me very strongly when I did Locarno Open Doors, because the focus on South Asia had South Asian countries excluding India. At that point in time, India was seen as a privileged country when it comes to filmmaking.
Oh.
Because if you actually look at filmmakers from Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or Afghanistan, Pakistan, like all these countries, they don't really have strong industries within their own countries. They don't have strong distribution within their own countries, but you have great talent, you know. So they can't go and ask someone for money, ke paisa do, and, you know, we'll make a film, which what happens in India. So what they need to do is basically they upskill themselves in international labs, and their Europe is where the money is, because there's public money to make films, and the Europeans have a lot of labs in teaching them how to access those funds. And I think we have great line producers, but no one's taking the next step of, you know,
Very
learning how to
interesting.
get this money. And you see that the South Asian filmmakers, the moment we manage to just give them this information and give them this insight, because I was working on the side of Locarno as a selection committee member, picking up the talent and the projects, and Locarno was putting their might behind, because it's a Swiss festival, on how to train the filmmakers. The moment we did this, and we had a focus for 3 years, and India was not, I kept asking them, why is India not included in this? One of the reasons, because we have our own film bazaar to do it. These filmmakers really have no means. The success is incredible. I mean, and then I continued for 3 more years for Southeast Asia, but the success is incredible. For example, you know, Sam came with this project, which now we know as Joyland, and it's I think it's streaming on BMS, and, you know, he had come with a script called Gulab at that time, you know, and I watched his short films along with the other selection committee members. We had a discussion, and we were like, this is a director we have to support, you know. And it was so incredible to see that Apurva Gurucharan also. I mean, these are all college mates from college in US who've just come together and said, chalo, let's make a film, because one of our friends is such a great filmmaker. And they went through the whole labs and everything, and they managed to make, you know, this film, which then landed up in Cannes, right? But this is not the only example. You had the Red Phallus from Bhutan. You had Made in Bangladesh. Rubaiyat has become from a director to a producer. I met Rubaiyat first because I'd selected a film for a work in progress lab in Film Bazaar.
Wow.
And I realized Meher Jan she had made. She's a Bangladeshi filmmaker, and she's a professor also, PhD professor. And then she writes a lot of scripts. She makes women-oriented films, and she made Made in Bangladesh with the funds, trying to understand. I think today she's supporting so many filmmakers. I had met Ari Food and Bijon because I programmed their film in CSAP. They were Bangladeshi filmmakers. One of them was living in LA, and he made a small film. He applied to the festival and he won there. So, you know, I was able to take him to Locarno, and then it got selected in Locarno. Now they are co-producing with India. They're helping Indian filmmakers.
Wow.
And there's a Nepali director. So these are just ways. I mean, producers are such resourceful people. You know, directors can be producers as well, but they can be two different skill sets. And I think this kind of synergy only festivals can do. And only an event can do, and only spending time with someone for 10 days, because all of them met at Locarno, okay? They got so thick that today Ram from Nepal is producing, produced Guras, who's Saurav Rai's film, which has just happened at Carlo Vivari. And they met at Film Bazaar. So it's a...
Yeah, I think film festivals are not just about the films you watch there. It's also about the glass of beer you have after like a tough day at like movies,
It's about
right?
connecting with people,
Yeah, so
really.
all the things you are doing apart from watching films is also what makes a film
Yes,
festival.
and we want filmmakers to meet filmmakers, because right now filmmakers have met a lot of audiences. So Mami has been very successful in what it set out to do. It's such a large festival. There is, every filmmaker who's been to Mami. Like, I recently met Anthony Chen at Cannes, and I went up to him and I said, "Hi, Anthony," because I also had met him at Pingyao where I was working, and I said, "Anthony, I'm now with Mami." And at the party, he just stopped and he introduced me to everyone. He's like, "Guys, she's from Mami. It's my favorite festival. You don't know." And everyone says one thing, that the best Q&As. They're like, "We've never seen an audience who watches films as carefully as a Mumbai audience," because they will literally ask, "Okay, how did you take that shot? And why did you do this? So they get into the medium, and the filmmakers have never seen such an educated audience about film, right? And they enjoy the enthusiasm. And I think that Mami is done now, because we have the space. We can do so much more, and we will do so much more.
Amazing. You know, in the last edition, the 2019 one, which I attended, you must know of this filmmaker Abhay Kumar, who has made
Of course, I
Placebo.
know.
Yeah. So Abhay was staying at my place for those 7 days. He wasn't in Mumbai then. And the experience I had with him, because like he had a very different way of watching movies. He'd watch a climax 4 times during the 7 days. He's like, "Meko climax hi dekhni hai." And then he'd come and tell, "Ki guys, go and watch Burning." Like Burning is there, and
Fantastic
like
film.
one of my all-time favorite films. So the synergy we had at our like flat, like the 1 BHK where I was staying with my friends, and Abhay being there, every day we'll wake up and at 10, like the Tatkal booking, we are all like at like sitting at our screens, ki aaj kaun se dekhenge. It is what made the festival for me. And all the people I meet in Mumbai, they have such fond memories of Mami. Ki, "Arey, hum line mein itni der khade the. Arey, if you go into this line, you'll see Shri Ram
Oh,
Raghavan."
that is a favorite.
That
no?
is the-
Like, and believe me, it's not only a Mami thing, okay? Like, when I used to work with Ocean Cinefan, okay, at that time, he used to be standing in line. So for me, it's like, and I'm talking about 2010. We used to be like, "Oh my God, Shriram Raghavan is standing in line." So it's like, he has maintained that,
He has
because he
maintained that.
loves, he has the joy of being a delegate, and it's incredible. And Abhay, I've known him since his short film, and Placebo was also at Film Bazaar. So of course, I know what a passionate he and Archana have also done. Archana, I mean, almost,
Love.
my God, my heart, I can't tell you how happy that film made me, like when I watched it. And Archana has also been to the lab, so I know them really well from when they were, and they're still so enthusiastic.
So enthusiastic.
It's
True.
incredible, and the paths they've taken. And I'm so happy that documentary films are doing so well, internationally from India, because so often you do not have the funds to make a fiction film. But does that stop an Indian filmmaker? No. They will say, "We'll make the documentary."
I love the journey of Shaunak Sen, like, and what he has done for.
So Shaunak Sen's first film is Mami Programmed, Cities of Sleep. And I
didn't
still
know that.
remember, yes, and I still remember, he was a JNU student, and I remember how we managed to get the film, because I was at that time, from 2015 to 2019, I was with Mami as a programmer for the Indian selection, that is India Gold, India Story, Spotlight. I remember we reached out to Films Division, and we told Films Division, "Please send us your documentaries." And, Films Division was producing documentaries, but at that time, you had a very amazing head of Films Division called Mr. Kundu, who had come at VS Kundu. And he started giving this opportunity to very young directors. Prateek's film also came from films division. And though he was an FTI student, and we had programmed A Man with Enormous Wings. You know, his first film was a films division film. So I remember seeing Cities of Sleep, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing film. So I wrote to Shaunak and I said, this is a really good film. Can we program it like at MAMI and all? And he was like, who submitted my film? And I'm like, films division has submitted your film. And we had a screening, and I still remember it was so stressful because you had something about 24 FPS and 25 FPS. At that time, I think things were not calibrated. In the digital, it's always risky because what have you shot in? What is the projector? So the film started going off sync.
Oh shit.
And you know, someone who's a perfectionist like Shaunak, obviously it will be like tough. So we had to stop the screening. And I remember one whole night we spent on, you know, getting a tech check done because we had to make sure that, you know, the film plays well. And I'm like, but it was, as anyone who has seen Shaunak's Q&A, like literally when he starts talking about his film, you're like, keep my dictionary app open, or like, you know, like he speaks so well about the film, and it comes from, you know, it's a very philosophical documentary. And yeah, so I've met Shaunak many times before that, and I was so happy to follow the journey of this film. And it was shot by Somu, who's again, you know, Soumyananda Sahi. So literally I tell Somu that you shoot anyone's film, it will go international, because he has that eye that, I mean, if you see his filmography, the films that he has shot from, you know, All That Bleeds on Nasir also, but even earlier, there was a film called Balekempa, and then he has shot, I'm forgetting so many of Somu's films. Now he's going to become a director. And Ibalewu, of course, he has shot Ibalewu as well. And he's an incredible cinematographer. And I feel he just brings that kind of palette or feel to a film that is very festival friendly. Like they just feel that, okay, this film will, you know, can show here. And yeah, so it's really nice to see the journey of these filmmakers.
Yeah. We briefly mentioned YouTube here and there, so I want to know what's your opinion of the term content. So there are some people who kind of are like, don't mention that word in front of me. Content.
No, I don't think words should be taken so seriously now. When people are talking, that they're just grabbing onto whatever word is floating around in an attempt to express themselves. I don't think we should.
This is such a nice take.
Like, for example, you know how nervous I was before this interview, because half of the things I say are not really maybe correct. You know, I'm not very updated on how we should be speaking. But I think if we just give everyone a leeway to express themselves, it's fine. I mean, a lot of people don't like the word networking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but then give me another word that I can use, you know. I mean, of course, people do say product for film, which I find strange. But then when you think of a studio film, it is a product. So it's
interesting.
It is to be consumed like a product, right? So it's, I mean, I'm like, okay, I don't think we should be so, I mean, I might be wrong also, and I have a lot to learn there, but I don't have a problem.
But I like this. I like this take.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with, you can say content, YouTube, movie, film, whatever.
We are short on time, so I am just going to quickly take a lot of recommendations.
Oh my.
Movies, we have talked about some films in particular, but let's talk about some books. Which are the most influential books in your life?
Influential is a very loaded word. So,
or you can just recommend us any book in general.
I have read a lot of classics when I was growing up, because I love reading. Actually, I'm a compulsive reader. I think also that's one of the reasons why I can watch so many foreign films, is because as a child, I used to read subtitles on Doordarshan in the afternoon films which used to come. So I think I got into films through reading subtitles, and which is why I am able to, you know, and watching a film without subtitles is a little difficult for me. But yeah, so I had really enjoyed, when I was growing up, I had, you know, Milan Kundera has just passed away, and I remember his Unbearable Lightness of Being was a very special book for me when I read it. I had also enjoyed reading Sophie's World. You know, it's a book which gets you into philosophy, and I used to have this habit of, I love engaging with things I don't understand. I know it sounds bizarre, but I used to just open books on philosophy and read because that page used to make no sense to me. And I used to love the fact that when something doesn't really, I don't really get something, it brings a lot of thoughts to my head,
Wow.
because I can make anything out of it. So I have read a lot of very random philosophy book, but which have created, like there was a Deleuze and Guattari's book called A Thousand Plateau. Wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I'm just saying that start reading things that you don't know anything about and you struggle with. Like even films, I think a lot of my engagement with authors is because I'm like, why can't I understand this film? And that's exactly how I got into watching Amit Datta's film. I remember he's a dear friend, but I remember when I first watched his film, I went up to him and I said, I loved your film, but I honestly can't understand it. I don't know what you've made.
ये मेरे साथ भी होता है. I saw his film at Bombay Art House. वो जो what's the name of that building?
Yeah, it's something like that, Bombay Art House or Art
it's in
Society or something.
Bandra only.
Yeah.
And I saw it there, and everyone was like, मेरे को समझ ही नहीं आया.
Yeah, so I went up directly to him and I said that I don't understand your film, but I know I like it. Like there was something very fresh about it. So he told me, maybe you don't understand it because you don't know much about Indian arts and aesthetics.
True.
And
I don't. Yeah.
when he said that, I was like, okay, I have to do a course. So I went and did a 1-year course on Indian arts and aesthetics only so that I can understand his films. And it did help me because I've also, worked very closely with Manikal and at Ocean Cinema. And he was the person who actually told me that I could be a film programmer. I never spoke to Mani, and I used to call him Mani because we had that kind of though he was technically my boss, but we were like friends over those 2 years that I worked with him. I never told him I watched any of his films because I never understood them, right? So I was like, where will I start telling? He used to find that very freeing because then he could talk to me about Bollywood, which was more something that I could like just talk about because we were in the industry. But yeah, so towards the new Indian cinema was something that Amit had written an essay, and that really led me to doing the Indian arts and aesthetics. And I realized anyway, right from my childhood, I've always tried to read things I can make no sense of. I do read the newspaper and everything.
This is very fascinating. But
Yeah, but I really would, book that I really enjoyed in that, not in that vein, but which caught me by surprise was Faulkner's Sound and the Fury. When I read it, I found it like, it was so cinematic and that kind of writing. During COVID, I started reading books on my phone.
the Kindle app.
Yeah, because I'm not on social. I'm on Twitter, thanks to Neeraj Gewan, who once just years ago asked me, why aren't you on Twitter? And I was like, do I have to be? He's like, but people have to know that you are doing programming. And I said, okay, fine, then I will go on Twitter only to put out my call for entries. And usually that is what I do anyway. So I said, instead of scrolling mindlessly over things, I downloaded the Kindle app. And I think during COVID, I read a lot on my phone. So I was very happy to read Cuckold by Kiran Nagarkar. And another lovely book, Amrita Mahale's The Milk Teeth, which I thought got a lot of Bombay. Like, because I'm from the city, I'm very attracted to people who are creating stories from within the city also. Like, who understand the city in different ways. Because it can be, they can have a complete fantasy Bombay and you can have a non-fantasy Bombay.
Have you read M and the Big Room?
Of course, Jerry Pinto's I love that book. Yeah. I love that book. I mean, and Indian writing in English is incredible, like, and translated books as well. Like God of Small Things, when I read it for the first time, I was just like, wow, what is this writing? It's so beautiful. I've enjoyed even reading, House of Mr. Biswa. So I used to like Love in the Time of Cholera also, Garcia Marquez, which a lot of people are like, how do you shift to magic realism? And of course, Rushdie's Midnight Children blew me away. I mean, that was a book that when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I can't get over it. It took me time to absorb what he did, midway. But I'm not a student of literature. But I remember that I used to love One book that was there with me for so long was Catcher in the Rye when I was in college, J.D. Salinger's. But I'm equally fond of. I have enjoyed Anna Karenina as a book. Like I used to love these big books. I remember Suitable Boy. When I was reading, I used to read it like a TV serial, because exactly there should be some TV serial that my brother or my mom used to watch for half an hour, and I never was interested in the TV serial, so I used to go into the bedroom and open this big Suitable Boy and read for half an hour. So I like big books which take very long to get over, but otherwise I'm an obsessive newspaper reader in the morning. I still have that bad habit of chai and newspaper, but
Which newspaper?
midday. So if you ask me about my pet love, is it's very morbid, but it's the crimes of Mumbai. Like I am very interested in how people, different ways in which people kill people in Mumbai. And I feel it's very different from how people kill people in Delhi. And it's very different. So I feel the murders of a city really define a city. So I'm always following a case. So I'm so excited when, you know, filmmakers take that. Like I do remember when Scam was made, and when you have filmmakers who follow the fact and make it into fiction only so that we can absorb that this happened, right? Because we are so unaware of what is happening because no one's reading the newspapers. I really enjoy those stories, and I mean not as stories but also to understand how the city functions.
But like it's such an interesting thing you said, like murders of a city like define a lot about that city, and they are different for every city. I think in general that's why people also have an inclination towards the crime thrillers. Everyone is trying to solve and understand ki why would that person do it.
I think I'm more interested in how they did it. I think the problem in it'll get too my talks will get too morbid, but the problem is always about not about how to kill a person, but how to dispose a body, right? And how do you dispose a body in a crowded city? So I used to always have this theory that the Mithi River is so dirty. If only we cleaned our city up, na, it would be tougher to dispose the bodies. So it's tied to sanitation. So I don't ask me about my interests. My interests are hardly what is popular.
No, but
It's hardly what is going on because I am not into social media. So I love, like I have a very weird habit of reading tenders because I like to see that if a tender has come out of something, that means kuch to banne wala hai.
This is very interesting.
So I'll be like, why are they asking for this in the tender? Abhi kya aane wala hai yahan pe? So I'm very invested in the infrastructure of the city of Mumbai because I feel a lot of deaths in Mumbai happen out of bad infrastructure also.
But I love the things you are fascinated by. They are like morbid, but like still very.
Not always morbid. I love the cartoon column also is my favorite, the witty ones. So yeah, I follow that as well.
Since we are short on time, we'll come back to MAMI. I have a few quick questions about MAMI. So tell us about this year's edition and what's so special about it, and when is it happening?
So 27th October to 5th of November. What we've done this year is we've extended the festival to 10 days.
Yeah, I want to know why is that so?
So I feel that, MAMI, a lot of people buy passes, but they don't necessarily get to watch as many films because, we have more people who have got the passes than we have capacity for the film screening. We are lucky enough that we have, PVR has given us dates which include 2 weekends. So we have a weekend.
So there are 2 weekends in this.
We have weekend, we have a week, and we end with a weekend. And MAMI still is a phenomenon that a lot of people discovered in their college days and then they continue. And I feel when you are a 10-day festival, by the first few days, first bunch of people who will get their passes are the ones who are waiting for MAMI to come back. But this is a massive city and a lot of people have not heard of MAMI also. And I feel by the time we reach a Wednesday, a lot of people will want to now join into the fun that is there. So when they get their pass on a Wednesday, they shouldn't feel that they've missed out on all the festivals. So then we will have reruns of audience favorites on the Saturday, Sunday.
Cool.
The coming Saturday, Sunday. So that at least if the films that have created a buzz, you should not feel ke, arey, I didn't get to watch it because uska screening khatam ho gaya. So we are trying to introduce a software this time into MAMI, which has not happened before. And with that software, we aim to track the early watchers have really liked, or the ones who didn't get into it, like they tried to get a pass but they didn't, we will try to see that if their numbers are good enough, then we will try to negotiate one more screening of the film from the sales agent.
Wow.
So that we can show it again. People don't leave without saying, "Arey, I didn't see only any of the good films."
How long was MAMI last year? Like 7 days?
I think most festivals, because of the cost, and it's a very prohibitive cost to have a festival, honestly, it was 8 days.
8 days. Including the opening ceremony.
So this time it will be 10 days. So, and another big step for MAMI, in terms of the big change, is that MAMI's always had India Gold as its, competition section. But I really, out of my work experience in the past decade and a half, I feel that we have to now include South Asian talent, simply because I have seen that in international festivals that I've worked with, very often there is a South Asian talent and an Indian talent going neck to neck, and it's the South Asian talent who gets the slot. So I do feel that Indian filmmakers also need to start competing with the South Asian, and South Asian talents have learned how to co-produce. So the quality of their films are
very nice.
Good. And unless you're competing and realizing that there is a better way of making films, you'll not be attracted to that way of making films, because it's a tougher way of making films. You have to fill in forms, you have to write. But then, imagine you're meeting someone from Bangladesh or Nepal who has managed to get into Cannes or get into Venice, and then you're having a conversation with them. Okay, I also applied. Yeah, I didn't get why. How come you got it? And then those stories which are exchanged will give that push to, saying that, chalo, maybe I should also get a producer, maybe I should also try these funds, I should also. So those are the aims for, and so we have announced a South Asia competition. We also wanted to be the hub for South Asia. So we have a South Asia non-competition section, and I think there's a lot of possibilities of collaborations at various levels, because Mumbai also as a city can lend to a lot of post-production facilities. It can lend to a lot of upgradation of their film. You never know, like maybe someone from India will start building theatres in their countries, learn distribution. There's a lot of collaboration possible, and I think it's high time since we are recognized as a region internationally, we should also accept that we are not only India, we are South Asia, right? And Southeast Asia has become really very good at producing films. But when international people look at Asia, when Europe looks at programming Asian films, the first thought is China, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, some maybe like Russia, not in the recent past, but others, Russia is really big. Or you even say that, okay, films from Thailand, Philippines, and then India is like, why do they need festivals? They're like, they have their own systems going. And I'm like, no, not for everyone. So we have to be able to create that knowledge base, curate that knowledge base, tell them that. So it's obviously everything is an attempt, but unless you try, and we tried something very special with Film Bazaar years ago, it worked very well. So that gives you the feeling that we'll try to do it not in the first year, then second year, if not third year. But the audience part of it is not going to be touched, which means that we are still going to bring the best of world cinema. So audiences are not going to feel the change.
Yes.
The filmmakers who come to MAMI will feel the change.
This was amazing, Deepti. You were very nervous before the start of the episode, but did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. Lot of fun. Thank you so much. Maybe I got a bit too nostalgic and
no, this is.
But I'm hoping that your audience won't judge me as much as just enjoy
They'll enjoy the conversation, and I'm so glad you had, because it didn't feel like a conscious conversation. You were like totally.
Yeah. That's how I talk too much. Also, I'm known for that. But yeah, but as long as I've been able to, film festivals is something I've been working with for very long now, and I'm very passionate about it, as you can see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always waiting to welcome everyone into this world that has given me so much joy and given all of us so much joy. And MAMI has always been, I've been with MAMI for 5 years now. I'm back, and it's always special. So
amazing.
Hi everyone, I have just done a video podcast with Chalchitra Talks, and if you've enjoyed it or not, because they have many more videos up on their platform, please do subscribe to Chalchitra Talks.